Hi and welcome to Jax. I'm here with Tracy Miranda. Hi Tracy.
Hello.
How was the keynote?
Yeah, no, really amazing. It was just incredible to have an audience of that size and to be able to talk to them about such an important topic.
Which was?
Diversity in tech. And the talk was 7 habits of diverse communities, and it's just trying to get this idea of what can we do to change diversity and how can we each be diversity champions and push that forward to make a real difference.
There are so many studies nowadays that measure the efficiency of and the benefits actually of having diverse teams, and some have showed that diversity walks hand in hand with more innovation and higher performance. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you look at all the research, you can see everything from diverse teams perform anywhere from 15% better if it's just gender diversity, up to 35% better if it's racial diversity. There's lots of figures about innovation, but I've also seen it in my own industry. When we're working with groups and you've got people coming in with different ideas, the end result is just better. And we see that a lot in open source as well. The more diverse the teams, the better the output.
And there are so many success stories, especially in IT now that a lot of companies are trying to make reports and about gender and diversity and inclusion and everything. Mm-hmm. But not all companies have been successful. Yeah. And I've heard some stories that they haven't been successful because they just see it as a social obligation, and they are not very involved in the idea. I mean, they just want to tick the thing and get it over with. So what's the problem? Should the management, for example, be more involved, or what's the answer?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things is that to make a change, we're looking at changing people's behaviors that they have had established. You're looking at changing some cultures as well. So all that's really hard to do. And in some cases, the companies might not necessarily appreciate the benefit, or they only see the cost, or they don't know how to go about and do it. And I think what we really need to start seeing is just a lot more companies who do it, start to have that competitive advantage, start to really succeed, and then we get to a situation where we get to a tipping point where everybody has to do it or they get left behind. And it's definitely moving in that direction. So yeah, I'm excited about where that could go.
And there are a lot of men in high-profile seats or something that say how important diversity is. So should men be part of the solution, of the discussion first of all, and then of the solution?
Yes, no, absolutely. And especially in the cases where the men are in positions of power, they're the ones who are deciding where money might get invested, in the case of investors, or who gets hired, or how much importance, how much money to give to diversity budgets. So specifically the people who are in charge of the current tech, who hold the power, are the ones who need to get involved and who can make a lot of difference. And we have a few women in that position as well, and I think that starts to help, the more and more we get on boards and things like that.
Speaking of that, when you think about tech, you immediately think of people like Bill Gates and perhaps Steve Jobs and the likes of. But you don't really, I mean, I personally cannot think of right now of a really high-profile woman in tech. I mean, obviously there are a lot of powerful women, but they are not so visible, let's say. So how can we promote them without making it sound like it's our job to push diversity forward? And
yes, I mean, certainly from my perspective, there was always the Sheryl Sandbergs and the Marissa Mayer, who were very high profile, and you could see them. But I think one of the points is that it's not always about having the big name person. It's not the Bill Gates equivalent. What we really want is to have many, many more women. And I make a joke sometimes that, improving diversity in tech is about having, we've got lots of mediocre middle management, and we just want lots of women who are mediocre, and it's actually a sign of success that you have women who can be mediocre, because it means you have enough people. You have the great ones and you have the good ones and you have the not so good ones, just like we have with men today. So I think it's an important point to make, just that yes, we do want the high profile women to encourage people to get in, but really it's about volume and it's about getting the numbers up.
But sometimes women are just the only female presence in the room, and that might not necessarily scare them off, but they shy away from the tech scene because they think that the scene is dominated by men. And so I was thinking that how important is it for women to have women in tech to have peers?
Yes, no, I think it really helps. And if I think back to my early days in tech, sometimes I didn't need a lot of other women around. I just had one really good friend, and that would make all the difference if we'd go to conferences together or we'd hang out together, and you could be maybe slightly more relaxed sometimes. So I think it really makes a difference, and I think to get more people in, it will matter a lot. And in that way, we're starting to see a lot more women come together to support each other in groups like Women Who Code. At conferences, you'll have diversity luncheons or just ways for them to gather. And I think that really does make a difference, and it helps a lot. So, but interestingly enough, I was going to say some women actually don't like that. So they prefer, it's just like, oh, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it in a mixed group. I don't want to be with only the women. So I think it's just a sign of how difficult it is. There is no one size fits all. So it's trying to give the people who do want to see people like themselves that, and then the people who don't mind not having to force them to gather in and do what everybody else is doing. So.
But the company culture matters a lot, right?
Absolutely.
Has a lot to do with it.
Being open to it and not forcing people to change themselves to be part of it, but accepting everyone and letting them add to the team is really key.
In the environment, for example, how could we change the environment in a tech company which is full of white male developers, for example? How can we make women feel welcomed and accepted?
Yeah, so talk about in the keynote about values, and I think a big one is empathy. So I've worked in lots of teams with white male developers who have a lot of empathy, who listen and who encourage, and I think as long as you have that environment, it makes a big difference. So getting people to be patient, getting them to not expect everybody to know everything, especially environments which work well for bringing in new people. So there's this mentoring attitude. I find those work really well. And also, as women in tech fall out of it because they just kind of get to a point sometimes where they've had enough. So just having those environments where they are men who are supportive and will stand up and will speak up as well to let the women be heard, I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, very important. And last but not least, in theory, tech is a meritocracy, but is it really that, or because there are so many questions to this answer and I really need to find out what you think? Yes.
So I think the meritocracy is not the true meritocracy everyone likes to pretend it is. The reality of it is some people are in a better position to take advantage of that. I will say in some cases it does work, because I was able to come up through the system through some level of meritocracy, but I think it's dangerous to think that anybody can do it. And sometimes I look back and I think, oh, I just got really lucky in some cases, and I couldn't tell someone else, perhaps another woman, this is exactly how you do it. And I think they are still barriers then that we need to acknowledge. So we need to drop this idea of it's a meritocracy and everyone can do it.
True. True. Thank you very much for the interview and for the lovely keynote, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much. That's great.